My dear brothers and sisters, today the entire Catholic Church throughout the world celebrates one of the most important days in her liturgical calendar, and it is the solemnity of Christ, the King of the universe. And this day is kind of special because it also marks the end or the conclusion of the church's liturgical year. That's why next week, if you notice, next week, we are going to enter into a new season. It is the season of Advent, our time of preparation for Christmas. And if you notice, the liturgical calendar ends with this celebration, the Christ, the King of the universe, as, how you call this? As a powerful reminder that everything church lives, teaches, and celebrates always reaches its summit, its culmination in the proclamation that Jesus Christ is our only Lord and King. You know, perhaps for us, the idea of a king is not easy to grasp or to comprehend because we live in a democratic society, right? But for the British, who have lived for generations under a monarchy, they can understand and they can appreciate the meaning of kingship, I guess, better and more naturally than we do. However, I still believe, my brothers and sisters, that all of us, we understand that there is at least a clear difference, there is a clear distinction between a king and a president or a prime minister. And I guess most of you have ever heard this before. And the difference is a president or a prime minister, they get voted in and they get voted out, right? The president or the prime minister, they get voted in and they get voted out. In short, the office is not his. The position is not his. The chair he sits in is not his. You enter the White House, and after several years, you leave the White House. You enter into your office, and you leave your office. Nothing is yours. The president or a prime minister is always voted in by the people, and they are voted out by the people. But we know it is not with a king. A king does not get voted in nor voted out. Always remember this, that a king is always born a king. A king is always born a king. And it means if you are a king, whatever you are born with, no one or nobody else can take it away from you. Whether you like the king or not, he is the king. Whether you accept him or not, he is the king. Whether you obey him or not, he is still the king. Period. And so when we say as believers that Jesus Christ is the King of the universe, that means whether you like Jesus or not, whether those people outside believe him or not, whether you obey him or not, whether you accept Jesus or not, he is still the King of the entire universe. And always remember this, that as a king, it is his natural occupation that the king always owns everything, right? It is in his natural occupation that the king always owns everything. The king owns a country and everything in that country. Thus, always remember that a king is not a symbolic figure. He is the absolute ruler whose word, whose mouth is a law. No debates, no votings, no negotiations. And always remember this, that to serve a king, there is this one particular character that will be expected from you. And that is loyalty. To serve a king, you need loyalty. And this loyalty is not seasonal. It means whether you are in season or out of season, whether you are in times of peace or in times of war, you are expected to be loyal. It is not selective. You know, when life is easy and it's convenient, I will serve my king. No. Because a soldier who obeyed only when it was convenient is never considered loyal at all. I don't know if you have ever heard this story. It is a story about, a boy named Jose Sanchez del Rio. And later on, he was called Saint Jose. A story about a boy, Jose Sanchez del Rio. But you might find yourself astonished or surprised at how a boy, 14 years old, could possess an extraordinary and amazing courage. Jose lived in the early 1900s during the time when Mexico was experiencing, a political persecution and agenda. And so they were trying to hunt, they were trying to torture and kill Catholics. They slaughtered nuns, sisters, they slaughtered priests, or even ordinary Catholics and believers during the time. Jose and his family always prayed rosary every day. And they were trying to attend Mass every single day secretly. One day, Jose, he gave his horse for another person so that that person could flee. That person could run away from the soldier. So he was captured, and during his imprisonment, he continued to pray, especially, the rosary. And he was being forced many times, so many times, to renounce his Catholic faith. Even one time, there was a story that one time his father, of course, as a father, you love your child, right? His father tried his best to free Jose from the prison. And so he was trying to pay a ransom for Jose, a sum of money to free Jose from prison. But you know what Jose said? He said to his father, "No, don't do that. My faith," he said, "my faith is not for sale." The thing is, he knew who he belonged to. He was not too young to be strong. He was not too young to be courageous and to fight for his own faith. And so the night before he was shot and the night before he was murdered, a soldier cut off the soles of his feet. So the soles of Jose was cut off, and he was forced to walk for 3 hours around that city towards the cemetery to his own grave. The soldiers also from time to time was trying, to cut Jose with, what do you call this? With a machete until he was bleeding. Was he in pain? Definitely. Only 14-year-old boy. He was in pain and he was in extreme agony. Even the account said that he was crying and he was moaning with pain, but he did not give up. So before he was shot and murdered, the soldier gave him last chance. The soldier said, "We will spare your life, we will let you live if you shout publicly, 'Death to Christ your King.' We will let you live if you shout publicly, 'Your Christ the King is dead.'" And you know what? Jose shouted, and it became his famous line. He shouted with his remaining strength that he had in his lung. He shouted, "I will never give in. Viva Cristo Rey," which means, "Hail and long live Christ the King." Viva Cristo Rey. We might say that a 14-year-old boy is far too young for this kind of courage. But I learned again and again that your spiritual maturity does not depend on your age, right? We might be so old, but we might be so childish in our spiritual life. Yet here was a boy who somehow recognized a profound truth in his life, that at some point in your life, you must stand up for your faith. That at some point of your life, you have to be courageous with your faith. You have to be courageous enough, and you have to know with whom you belong to. And that is faith and loyalty. My dear brothers and sisters, I don't know, perhaps the question today is, how loyal are we truly to Christ, our King? A sincere question. Have you really allowed Christ, to reign over your family? Have you really allowed Christ to really reign over your life, your will, your intellect, your job, your plans, and everything? Perhaps the question is, have you given the Lord full and unrestricted access over part of your heart and your decisions in life? Because always remember this, my brothers and sisters, always remember this. Sometimes it is no longer about trying to involve God in our plans, but it is about learning to allow ourselves to be involved in every plan that God has. Learning to trust and to surrender every single thing to Christ, your King. Because to be honest, how many of us here, even knowingly, we sell Jesus for so many things in life, right? We sell Jesus for career. We sell Jesus for promotion. We sell Jesus for connections. Oftentimes, we sell Jesus for a relationship, for your boyfriend, for your girlfriend. Yet Jose said, my Catholic faith is not for sale. Look, he knew what he believed. He knew clearly what he believed. And even in the midst of this unbearable pain, can you imagine your souls are being cut off and you are asked to walk for 3 hours to your own grave? And even in this unbearable pain and suffering, Jose can still cry out, long live Christ the King. Yet how many of us here, when even the smallest discomfort, comes in our life, when things do not go on our way, when things do not go the way we want, when life becomes a little bit struggle, we so easily begin to complain and complain against our King, as if your God owes you many things, when in truth, your Father and your King has never owed you anything in this life, because everything that you have is owned by the King. And that's the only time that we will realize how shallow and how superficial our love and our faith to Christ, our King. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, today in this holy sacrifice of the Mass, later on as we kneel before Christ, our King, as you receive His body and blood, understand that yes, He is a King, but He is not like any other king. He is a King who does not sit on a throne of gold, but on the cross. He does not wear a crown built or made from precious stones, but from thorns. Though He has dominion, He never dominates. Even though He is God that you cannot control, always remember that He is God that you can always trust. And so today, as children of God, we are going to choose, and we are still going to choose obedience over convenience. We are still going to choose loyalty over comfort and faithfulness over fear. We will still choose to remain faithful to Christ, our only King. Because if we choose Him, always remember, as He promised to that thief and to that sinner, my children, today, you will be with me in paradise. Amen.